Welcome to Aspects of Writing with your host, James Kelly. For the next 60 minutes, we'll explore every aspect of writing, including how to create, format, and even sell your work. The phone lines are open at 731-1230. That's 731-1230. Or toll free, 1-866-820-KLAV. Now, let's get writing. Here's your host, James Kelly.
Hello and welcome to Aspects of Writing. I'm your host, James Kelly. Today, my guest and I we're going to be talking about ebooks, bookstores, and internet sales. We will examine the many ways we sell our work and where, and the importance of websites and more. I would like to remind our listeners that we can be seen live on the internet at Google+, Twitter, Tumblr, WordPress, Blogger, Pinterest, Facebook, and YouTube. Just go to youtube.com/aspects of writing, that's all one word, and click on the featured button. We also stream live on KLAV 1230am.com. Joining us by phone, my guest for today is authors Dr. Antoinette Smith. Antoinette, are you there?
Hi, James.
Hi.
I'm here.
We're going to get to you in just a moment. And J.T. Hartke, are you there?
Yes, hello.
All right, and in the studio we have Dave Breslow, Nancy Nies, and author Roger DeBlanck. But before I introduce my guests, here are a few fun facts. Dave, would you like to take the first one?
Sure. Fact number one. Kerry Wilkinson began writing his debut novel, Locked In, 11 months ago, quote, as a challenge to myself to see if it was something I could do. It became the first in the Jessica Daniel detective series, and Wilkinson quickly went on to produce two follow-ups, Vigilante and The Woman in Black. Despite Wilkinson having no agent or professional publicity machine, the three books have sold more than 250,000 copies in total to make him the best-selling author at the Kindle store in the last quarter of 2011. He just signed a 6-book deal with publisher Pan Macmillan.
So this is some hope for the wannabe authors out there who put their books on Kindle or some of the other ebook sites. And Roger, would you like to take number two?
Sure. Kentucky novelist John Locke is the first self-published author to sell more than 1 million digital books on Amazon.com. Locke denies media accounts that say he initially priced his books at $2.99, then cut the rate when they didn't sell. Quote, he says, "It was always 99 cents, and it took 9 months before anyone bought anything," he said. He continued to say, "It wasn't a matter of price point, but word of mouth. People telling others one sale at a time, just like insurance."
Yeah, we were talking about that in the green room earlier about how important it is to get the word of mouth out there. Nancy, would you like to take number three, please?
Certainly. Amanda Hocking is 26 years old. She has 9 self-published books to her name and sells 100,000 plus copies of these ebooks per month. She has never been traditionally published, and it's no stretch to say at $3 per book, 70% per sale for the Kindle store, that she makes a lot of money from her monthly book sales, 210,000. 200, yeah, that's right.
210,000.
I got it right the first time. Perhaps more importantly, a publisher on the Private Reading 2.0 mailing list has said, to effect, there is no traditional publisher in the world right now that can offer Amanda Hocking terms that are better than what she's currently getting right now on the Kindle store, and she's done it all on her own.
And that's kind of impressive when you think about it, when you can go out there and put a book on the computer with no cost involved and make that kind of money.
I'm liking this.
If you are just tuning in, you are listening to Aspects of Writing with me, your host, James Kelly, right here on KLAV 1230 on the AM dial in Las Vegas. Or on your computer, you can find us live on the internet at KLAV1230am.com. My guests are Dr. Antoinette Smith, Nancy Nies, David Breslow, J.T. Hartke, and Roger DeBlanck. As we go along, if you have questions for the panel, please call us locally at 702-731-1230. Or if you're out of the area, you can reach us at 1-866-820-5528. My first guest is Dr. Antoinette Smith. Dr. Smith, please give us a little bit about your background and your book.
Sure, thank you. I am a wife, a mother, professor. I am an experimentalist, behavioral researcher, and I recently authored a book called You're More Than What Meets the Eye, The Independent Woman's Guide to Becoming Wifely Material.
How did you come up with that short title?
So My target audience are women that focus primarily on their career and put less emphasis on a relationship. So, or that woman that may have the man of her dreams, but is taking too much of a leadership role and not allowing him to be the leader in so many ways. Mm-hmm. Or that woman that has one foot in the relationship and one foot out of the relationship just in case. Also, that woman who's trying to please her family members more so than please the love portion of her life.
Well, that's interesting.
So, just to say that it's important that, we all have this great foundation within us, and so we have to understand our mindset, question our thoughts, know the roots of our thoughts, and really build that foundation, know ourselves before we can take on another human being and sustain marriage. So everything we do is about our attitude and our mindset. So my book is a memoir of what I've gone through, my transition from becoming a very career-focused individual, being that pretty much independent type woman, and trying to really put someone else involved with me, so more of an interdependent person.
And Antoinette,
and being comfortable with that.
Yeah. Now, you also lecture on that book as well. Is that correct?
No, the strange thing is I come from the accounting background. So
Okay.
I teach graduate and undergraduate students.
Okay. All right.
I teach them accounting information systems. I have a lot of adults in my graduate class, and so we all have, in the accounting, I can't speak for everyone, but in my field, similar to other fields, we are high-driven. So a lot of things we're very focused, we're very goal-oriented. And so I was thinking maybe I can take that same strategy and apply it over here to really having a balance with both career and my personal life, and being able to satisfy both and go after my personal life with the same energy, which I have found to be very beneficial in my career. And no one said that to me. No one said, I can't say no one said it, but I finally realized that the same characteristics you need to be a wife, you can actually apply them in your career. So that's being humble, that's being patient, that's knowing exactly when to speak, that's using the softness that all women have, that's just knowing when and where and how.
Okay. And my next guest is Dave Breslow, and Dave is here in the studio with us. Dave, can you please tell us a little bit about your writing experience?
Sure. My first book I wrote was actually a golf book, because at the time a lot of my clients were athletes, pro and amateur athletes. So I wrote a book called Wired to Win, The Mental Keys to Play Your Best Golf. And since then, a lot of my work has gone toward the personal development arena. So I have a book out there that's, right now it's in ebook form, and it's called 7 Laws, 21 Days, Transform the Way You Live, Work, and Play. And I also am creating 2 new ebooks that are available. Well, the notice of them is available on the website now. And one of them is called From Website to Web Sales in 36 Hours. And the other one is How to Make Money Want You as Much as You Want It. Because I find these two to be really interesting topics for a lot of people who don't know really how to get started when it comes to writing their books. And it's very overwhelming, the information out there, and I know we're going to talk about a lot of that today. But that's how it started for me. I was never a writer until later in my life, but I woke up one day and I realized I really like to write. And I just went to my computer and started kind of writing without any editing or anything. And before I know it, I had about 200 and some odd pages on the computer.
Well, what is your background, Dave?
Well, my background is really mostly in coaching. I've spent most of my life as a personal development coach or peak performance coach and a trainer. So all of my work has really been involved around helping people get what they want and utilizing some insights and strategies that are kind of not conventional, I suppose. I was never a big fan of a lot of the traditional tips and strategies that are out there. So everything I did was often a little bit of a different conversation, but it gets results, so people are really responding to it.
And you also were an actor, or are an actor.
Yes, I still am an actor. And I was an actor in Chicago, and I'm in Las Vegas right now. And in fact, I shot a little video for Chipotle just last week, and I've only been here about 2 weeks. But it's like anything else. It's like what we're going to talk about. It's getting in there and making the contacts.
And making it happen.
Yes, you just have to make things happen. And I didn't know a soul in this town when I got here.
Well, our next guest is going to be J.T. Hartke, and J.T. is calling in as well. Are you there, J.T.?
Yeah, I sure am.
All right, how about you give us a little bit about your background?
Well, unlike kind of your previous two guests, my book is a fiction book, so I didn't have any direct experience because my novel is sort of it's an epic fantasy, sort of like Lord of the Rings, and I've never actually been a wizard nor spoken to a dragon. So you can't have. But most of my experience comes from the fact that about from the time I was 8 years old, I picked up Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe from the Chronicles of Narnia, and I was hooked forever after on the idea of science fiction and fantasy and reading something that's outside your realm. To me, reading something from based in 20th and 21st century America seems very, very boring to me.
Yeah.
So I like to read things that are more fantastical and out there. And so it was about 2008 when I got laid off from a job when the big economy started coming down. And while I was doing a job hunt, I had a lot of time behind a computer. And I think if you ask 75% of people out there, they would say, yes, I believe I have a novel inside of me if only I had the time to write it. Well, I actually had no excuse to not have the time to write it. So I sat down and I wrote a novel. And then for about a year, I submitted it to different publishers. And finally one picked me up, but the thing was they told me I needed to learn how to write. They loved my story, they loved my characters, they loved what I did with the world, but I needed some brushing up on my writing style. So then we took another year and really cleaned it up and actually just released the Dragon Soul Saga 2 weeks ago at Comic-Con in San Diego.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, JT, your books are all on ebook format, though, correct?
Yes, they are.
Okay, and how are they doing there?
They're actually selling really well. What was great about at Comic-Con, I was of course selling traditional paper books there, but I was passing out a lot of cards which have the beautiful cover and map from my book on them, and we had a huge uptick in website hits from that. And online there, right from the website, we have a download where you can download the first 4 chapters for free and sample the book. We called it bait, as I said. But after that, I could direct anybody to Kindle and Amazon. And as people were walking by, maybe they didn't want to buy the paper copy, but they sure were interested in whether I was on Amazon and on Nook. So, yeah, those sales have really gone up since Comic-Con.
All right, if you're just tuning in, you are listening to Aspects of Writing with me, your host, James Kelly, right here on KLAV 1230 on the AM dial in Las Vegas. And on your computer, you can find us on the internet at KLAV1230am.com. And my next guest is here in studio, Roger DeBlanck. And Roger, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're up to?
Well, thank you. I want to express my gratitude to Mr. Kelly and Aspects of Writing for having me as a guest today.
Thank you.
My novel, The Ramos Brothers Trust Castro and Kennedy, was published in December of last year, 2011. It chronicles the epic story of two brothers, Juan and Alberto Ramos, and their family. Juan and Alberto are born in Havana in the 1940s, and they grow up in a wealthy family. But their family has a lot of problems. The brothers' boyhood adventures, they start to coincide with the revolution that's taking place in the 50s in Cuba. And the family is forced to make a really difficult decision. Juan and Alberto's father decides to stay in Cuba, while the brothers and their mother move to Miami. Over the course of their lives, the brothers have many connections and encounters with Fidel Castro and with JFK. These experiences leave them enamored, even at times obsessed with these two figures. Both Castro and JFK, throughout the book, I characterize them as human beings, not as the larger-in-life figures. They're very much portrayed as being both brilliant and flawed. But ultimately, the story is about the brothers, how they learn to trust in the love they have for each other, and how they endure the hardships that they face. The novel spans about 20 years in their lives, from their youth all the way up to their young adulthood, and it covers over a half-century of the lives of their extended family. The narrative weaves together a coming-of-age tale with a family saga. But ultimately, again, it's a story of these two courageous brothers who become these extraordinary young men during a really pivotal time of the 21st century. And one of the central ideas in the book is the conflict within the Ramos family is a microcosm for the whole era. The story itself is based on the experiences of my father and uncle, who were born in Havana and immigrated to the United States as young boys. And I just spent months interviewing them, and they told me all these anecdotes, and that eventually led to a narrative that just grew into this epic story. As for myself, I have a bachelor's degree in English from UNLV. master's degree in information science from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. I live here in Henderson, Nevada. I work as a librarian at the Clark County Library, which is part of the Las Vegas Clark County Library District. Since my youth, I was writing poetry and then started with manuscripts through my college years, and The Ramos Brothers Trust Castro and Kennedy became my first novel. It's available in paperback and Kindle through Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And I'm currently working on a new project, another historical novel. I'm titling it The Sky is a Landfill, and it's going to trace my mother's side of the family this time. My grandfather was a World War II vet, and he survived Pearl Harbor. So the novel's going to start there at Pearl Harbor and cover the war in the South Pacific, and then work through the arms race and the Cold War, and somehow make it to the current decade and the years following the events of September 11. And hopefully the next couple of years I'll have it finished.
You will. We're confident. And our last guest for today is going to be Nancy Nies. And Nancy, you have a show here on KLAV actually called Dance Charisma.
Yes, and pardon me, but it's Nancy Nies.
Nies, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Like nephew is the easy way to remember it. Anyway, yes, I have Dancing on Air because my job is my day job, you want to call it, author on the side here. But anyway, I run Dance Charisma. It's a dance studio, a ballroom and Latin, the kind of stuff you see like on Dancing with the Stars and that kind of dancing, which is a career that I did midlife and made a big change in my mid-30s to switch on over to dance, which I love, but it's very time-consuming. So, as for my own self, I've always wanted to write books. Always, always. It's my earliest memory. I remember telling my mother I wanted to be a booker, and she said, "What do you mean?" And that's when I found out author was the word I was looking for. I learned to read in order to become a writer. I mean, that's how I went about it, and so all through. I was always writing and still am, and but most of it isn't anything that you would publish. I'm on only my second book at the moment, and it is really funny because it was just meeting you that got me off my duffer to get moving towards writing a book because. First of all, if you run a dance studio and you compete at ballroom dance, you spend all your time dancing, practicing, and of course running a business is a full-time occupation. And so I didn't, and also when I first started writing in college and in high school and junior high, I was always in all these creative writing courses and had deadlines and that sort of thing. And but I found that if I kept writing and kept writing and kept writing, it was almost like I stopped living. I would walk into a room, and in the back of my head, I'd hear, "She walked into the room." And so I felt distant from the world that I was living in, and I thought, okay, I'm going to put off writing till I've lived a bit. And I made up my mind that in my 50s, and I'm in my 50s now, I would get back to writing. And so then when I met you and you said, "Well, what are you writing?" I said, I guess I better get started because it's time.
We actually gave you a deadline.
Yeah, and I actually got it underway. And I hadn't written in a long, long time, but I found out it was like riding a bicycle. It just comes. So anyway, what I'm writing at the moment is this book. It involves dancing because naturally that's what I know. And so I've always been a huge fan of Dick Francis books. He always has a backdrop of horse racing while he has these mysteries going on. So I am writing a mystery novel about this lady who works in a dance studio. And yeah, what a thought. I've always been a big fan of books that don't necessarily just totally change your life like Shakespeare, but on the other hand that aren't just a complete time waster either, that they move you. And I wanted to get into that realm and leave people with little bits and pieces of the writing itself as they read a story that they can relate to with people, ordinary like people in their lives.
Okay.
So.
Well, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Aspects of Writing with me, your host, James Kelly, right here on KLAV, 1230 a.m. on the dial in Las Vegas. And on your computer, you can find us on the internet at KLAV1230am.com. My guest is Nancy Nies. David Breslow, Roger DeBlanck, JT Hartke, and Dr. Antoinette Smith. As we go along, if you have questions for the panel, please call us locally at 702-731-1230. Or if you're out of this area code, you can reach us at 1-866-820-5528. We're going to talk a little bit about 7 mistakes ebook authors make, and then this is going to... This actually comes off of a website called about.com. Roger, would you like to take the first one there?
Sure. Before I do that, I just want to really comment on something Nancy said. I really liked what she said about experience and also with starting out as a reader. I feel like the hardest thing to do when I'm writing is to find enough time to read, and that might sound crazy, but honestly, when you're working on your own work, you sometimes forget how important it is to balance that against your favorite writers. So to me, I always have a regimen every day to try to read at least 50 to 100 pages of other people's work to just keep me grounded in their style and their voice. And when you talked about experience, I think for me, I finally realized turning to my own family, there was so much to write about, whether it was with my father and uncle's experiences, and although I fictionalized them, there was so much to be learned from their life and try to make a story out of that. And now with the current work that I'm doing, taking my mom's side of the family. So those two things really hit a chord with me when you mentioned those. That was just really cool.
Well, you know what, let's just ask Dr. Smith and JT about that as well. How do you feel about that?
I totally agree. I mean, the way I agreed with several of the things she said. The point about writing from experience in your life, it's very important because, I mean, I'm writing within the realm of fantasy, so the scenes that I'm writing are not something somebody's going to experience in their everyday life, but romance, fear for the safety of your family, a challenge that you've got to overcome that is epic in proportion, that's all stuff that everybody deals with in their lives. So
absolutely.
I really agree with that. So I think that bringing that into a great story that has action and fun characters and maybe makes you laugh, maybe makes you cry, I think that's where literature comes in.
Well, and that's true whether it's a memoir or a fantasy like you're talking about, or just a novel, a regular novel. And even Dave, with your writing, you write about golf and your mentorship. It has to play in there somewhere.
Yeah, it does involve my experience because even though I may be writing to golfers who actually play better golf than I do, it doesn't really matter because what I'm writing about is the human condition, essentially, as probably everybody really is.
Right.
But I happen to be couching it in terms of peak performance on the golf course, if that's what the book is. The other books are about life and peak potential in life. So, yes, it's all about the human condition, and I've certainly had my own ups and downs, and that's part of the story. And beyond that, it's really a matter of writing. I heard somebody say a really great thing a few years ago. They said, don't tell me, show me, because the first few manuscripts that I wrote were very much full of telling people, and they were very dry. I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this. And somebody looked at it and said, well, where's the glamour in all of this, or where's the story in all of this? So I wasn't really showing people. I was just telling them, and it was way too dry. And it's something you learn over time, and that you add your experience into that, and the storytelling becomes really terrific.
And Dr. Smith, do you agree with all that?
I do. I'm sitting here thinking about how when I wrote my book, I made sure not to cross over into sustaining a marriage. And the reason I wrote the book is because I felt like there was not many resources for women like me. I feel like we are unique as individuals, but I had a story, and it had to be one that I could share with other women, and it would help them. The ironic thing is I'm getting married women saying, I'm learning from you. But I felt like if I wanted, I'm Mrs. Smith now, but I felt like if I wanted to be successful in that area, I had to dig into the resources. So the book is pretty much about how difficult it was for me to even get to that point and to transition. And so the whole book is, about me telling my story. And then I add in theory and testimonies and interviews from other people. So other people are allowed to tell their stories as well.
Well, I think, and I've written both government espionage as well as science fiction. And it is true that we do put ourselves in those books in some way, in some fashion, and certainly from our experiences throughout life. We're going to talk a little bit about the ebooks, and the biggest mistake most ebook authors make is that they don't clearly define, identify, and visualize who they are selling their ebook to. On the web, to be successful, you must write a specific group of people who have specific interest. Make sure that you know exactly who is going to buy your ebook and where you can find them online. And does anyone on the panel have an experience with this?
Yeah, I do. I'm going to go back to the golf book again,
okay,
even though that was a while ago for me. What I had to do with that was I contacted the Golf Channel, which if you're a golfer is pretty much like if you're an eater, the Food Channel is the thing to watch.
Yeah.
If you're a golfer, the Golf Channel is what you watch. And it had a lot of viewers. So what I did was I called them and I said, I'd like to write some articles for you.
Okay.
Gratis, of course, no charge. And would you put my articles up once a week on the website? And they said yes, after checking me out, of course. And I ended up writing articles once a week, submitting to the Golf Channel. And I knew I was reaching the exact audience I needed to reach for that particular book, because I had made that mistake with other books, thinking, hey, this is about peak performance and living life, and I thought it was for everybody. And even though you think that, you still have to target a particular group, and that's the way the book is going to sell. And I got to sell thousands of books just because I was involved with the Golf Channel in places that I would never have sold those books before.
So you knew your targeted audience.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that is key, whether it's be a mystery or whatever. You've got to find out who that audience is and target them. Nancy, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I have a question for you. My thought of a targeted audience goes back to when I was flying everywhere all the time, and I nearly always would grab a book right there in the airport, take it on the plane, and really kind of hope to be done about by the time I checked into the hotel room. And so if I were to say I had a specific targeted audience, it would be people who fly on airplanes. And I don't know if that's specific enough, because it's not like too much of a common interest, just a common behavior. So I don't know.
Well, actually there's a lot to that. When I published both my novels, I self-published, and what I did is I did the same thing. I actually have a larger print than your typical paperback. And I did that on purpose so that if someone's on a plane, it's easier for them to read. So it makes sense to me. And plus, my novels aren't that long. I mean, they're fairly short novels.
Yeah, I tend to be a rather sparse writer myself, so it fits.
I want to add to that, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Because I've learned recently, so my book the ebook and paperback just became available on Amazon and .com. And so what happened was, even though I understood my target audience, when people would ask me questions or interview me about my book, I wasn't specific about my target audience. So I just want to add that that's also important. So you can write in that direction, but you need to also be able to speak in that direction.
Absolutely.
Because we can get confused. I'm just saying, if there's anyone, I just want your listeners to know that, someone could ask you a question and throw you in left field, but you have to remain focused even on your target audience, because you can't have the answer to everything.
And
for everybody.
And I would also like to talk a little bit about what you and I had a conversation, it's been, over a month ago now, Dr. Smith, regarding your book. And this deals with targeting your audience in a way, because one of the things we talked about was how to get your book out there and get it noticed. And believe it or not, one of the techniques that you used was actually going after what's called crowdfunding, or funding your project. And you didn't necessarily need that because you already had your book pretty much ready to go. It's just that this was a way, or a technique to get people to recognize what you're doing. And can you share a little bit with our listeners what you did?
Yes, Mr. Kelly, first I want to give you full credit.
No.
I've spoken about you almost every day since then, because no one told me. No one told me to go out and actually place a link on your website where people can actually fund your project, right? And so I did it, and I raised so much money. And I was a little nervous about it. I thought, why in the world would someone fund the writing of my book? And I mean, it was unbelievable as I saw donations of $5 come in, $25 come in, $100 come in. And even if I had a chance to speak to individuals, so let's suppose I walked up to someone I knew, and I would say something like, if you don't mind, just $5 or whatever. And I mean, they would end up understanding the book, listening to it, and say, guess what, I'll give you $100. So I want to thank you for it because I was able to raise in a short period of time. I had it up for a month under a little like around $2,000.
Okay.
So $2,000 that I used to have people proofread my book even further.
Uh-huh.
Just pay for more advertisement and everything that I've been, and I still have some money left over that I haven't used yet.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so thank you for that,
and
because it would have been all come from me completely.
Right, and I think that's the important thing too. And you actually did target an audience, believe it or not, because you went after family and friends to let them know you have this book. You went after people that you know and told them about your book. So you were actually creating a basis for those sales.
Yes.
And even though it is funding, let's be real, because the incentive behind these funding projects, by the way, is that if you give me $10, you're going to get a copy of the paperback. Or if you give me $20, you may get a copy of the hardback. So it's an incentive program. It's sort of like pre-selling your book is the way it works. Did you actually set it up also, I believe you did, where there'll be a book launching or a party with the author afterwards or something? Or have you done that?
I did. I had that where if you donated $50 or more.
Uh-huh.
So it depends on the amount you donated.
Right.
But for $5 you got a PDF copy of the book.
Mm-hmm.
For $25 you got a paper copy of the book.
Okay.
And also for $50 you got a paper copy of the book, but it's just you got more gifts.
Mm-hmm.
As you donated more.
Right, and that's how the incentive program works. Like whatever stage you're at, you still get everything under that. So, and it's very effective. I actually helped another young lady acquire her money to finance her book the exact same way. And this is good for anyone. Even if you may have the money, you can still use this as a tool to go out there and market your book as well. So don't think of it as just, well, do I need the money to finance this? Look at this as a way to actually go out there and bring attention to your book. Because keep in mind, when someone helps you fund your book, there are a lot of people that you don't know who are helping with this project. And so if they get that book and they read it and they like it, now they're going to tell other people. So, it's a domino effect. So it's good in many ways. And also, we're going to move on here. Selling an ebook through it, though it is highly profitable, it is not a business where you make hundreds of dollars per sale. And that's obvious if you're selling it for 99 cents, you're really not going to make. Automate everything you can. Credit card processing, ebook delivery, as much technical support as possible to keep your ebook publishing and sales costs to a minimum. If you can't automate a function, delegate it to someone else. And I know Dave has experience with this because you have a lesson out there on your ebook. How is that handled on your project?
Well, it was a huge frustration for me for several years because I discovered that while IT people are very knowledgeable and intelligent, they don't exactly communicate all that well. And I was frustrated time after time after time with talking to IT people about how to set up a website, how to get an autoresponder, how to set up an opt-in page and get people to give them your first name and your email address, and then pay now buttons and getting with PayPal and everything on the computer. I'm going to sound like I'm Donald Trump, although I'm really not. But no, I'm not. But it's just funny to me now because I've done so much now and I understand so much more than I used to. Mm-hmm. That I run across people all the time that are getting stuck at the very basic level of just they know how to turn the computer on, but after that, it's a little bit of a problem. They don't know how to set up any pages. They don't know how to set up anything for consistent communication with people. And that's why I wanted to write that ebook, because I thought it was really important, because I don't talk like an IT person and I don't write like an IT person.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, really. And people just want it straight. And I just had such a hard time getting it straight from these people because they like talking to other IT people. Mm-hmm. They don't know what it's like to talk to people like us.
Well, I'm going to ask JT because, JT, you had your book published through a publisher. Have you experienced any of this?
Well, actually, I mean, that my publisher handles all the website, but you're absolutely right. I mean, even when you've got a publisher behind you, it's complicated to keep a website unified with a Twitter feed, unified with a Facebook feed, and then try to keep, keep your catalog current and every item available and manage, Amazon and everybody. So, being published is hard enough. I can't imagine being self-published and being your own webmaster as well as your own publicist and all of that. I'm lucky to have a team of that behind me.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I'd like to let our listeners know that you're listening to Aspects of Writing with your host, James Kelly, right here on KLAV 1230 on the AM dial. And we also stream live on the internet at KLAV1230am.com. My guest is Dr. Antoinette Smith, and we also have J.T. Hartke, Nancy Nies, David Breslow, and Roger DeBlanck. And we have Judy McFadden joining us on the phone. Judy, are you there?
Yes, James. How are you doing?
Great. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. I'm calling in to say hi to my friend Roger.
Oh.
Hi, Judy. And I loved your book.
How are you doing, Roger?
I'm very good.
I'm calling in, James, because I read Roger's book. I'm a great fan of Castro and Kennedy and that type of book, and it's really very good. Mm-hmm. But Roger told me about Goodreads, which I'm on that site, but Roger gave me some really good information about how to get on there and get myself out more. Mm-hmm. And you were talking about how to sell your books and websites, so I thought maybe Roger might want to expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, actually, Roger and Dave were talking about this before we came on air. We were actually having a discussion about Goodreads, as a matter of fact.
Yes, we were.
Yeah, I found it to be basically almost my website at this point. I hope to build my own at some point, but I think for now it's just a great access point. Not only am I an author on there, you can view me as an author. I also, every time I read a book, I review it now. And the thing that's awesome about this website is you can go in and rate every book you've ever read since you were a kid. And I've rated, 350, 400 books and reviewed over 200 of them. So I'm not only an author on there, but I'm also a reader, and people can see what I'm reading, what I'm writing about the books that I'm reading. And what's also interesting about Goodreads is when you are an author, when you create an account and you have your own book, you can do giveaways on there. And I actually didn't know about this at first when I became a member of Goodreads. Your first six months of publication, you can enter a giveaway and have your book. People can enter the contest to win it. And then the winners, you mail them the copies. The Goodreads staff on the website handles all that. And when I did a giveaway, I just put 2 free copies that people could enter to win. I had over 500 people, I think about 530 people that were interested. A couple of them have read it. One of the people I don't even know, who I mailed it to somewhere in Tennessee, gave it a 5-star review. They had no reason to do that other than I hopefully they liked it. They didn't write a review of it, but they liked it.
But
and
Roger, that $100 bill you sent along with it might have helped.
Yeah, if I had that extra money, that would be nice.
The old book bribe works every time.
But I tell you, Goodreads is an amazing website in my opinion. I just really like it for not only the fact that I'm an author on there, but it's every author. I mean, even the biggest publishers from Little Brown to Forrest Rouse and Garreau, all their authors are on there, and that's where those advanced copies come from. People just enter contests for these advanced copies. My wife won one of them, and she's reading it right now, and she's going to review it and give feedback, and the publisher can go on there and see what she said. So it's not just for everyday people, it's for even the biggest publisher, biggest authors in the publishing industry here are on there, or at least their publisher is running a author page for them on there, and they're giving away their books. And so there's all types of connections going on and ways to give away your book and to have.
And also the libraries check in at Goodreads too.
Yes, they do.
The public libraries.
Yes, they do link reviews from Goodreads to your book on the library's website. And
yeah, and Roger, thank you for the review that you put on Goodreads for Life with McDuck, too. I appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome. You earned it. I enjoyed the book. I told you that several times, and I'm keep encouraging you. I'm waiting for your next one.
And Judy, you do something that really is very effective, too, with your book, in that keeping your name out there and keeping the book current, is the fact that you do call into the radio shows, and you do, even if it's just for a question. And I think as an author, it's important to market any way you possibly can. And Judy, I really praise you for doing that. You do a great job on that.
Well, thank you. I call because not really though to market, just because I'm interested. I enjoy the shows and the people on the shows, and my friend Don Yang Barnhart, I call in when he's on. So.
Yeah,
but,
he's Yang.
I'm going to get off now and listen to the rest of the show. So I'm enjoying it so far. Everybody's just been very. One last thing I wanted to say when you were talking about writing about life experiences. Mm-hmm. In my book, I write about my 9 years with a Scottish Terrier therapy dog. But the turbulent times I went through, and there were some, and I wrote about them. Mm-hmm. At that time, you never think, oh, I'm going to write a book about this.
Right, yeah. When you're experiencing
you never
those
think
things,
that,
they
but boy,
seem horrible.
You can take
yeah.
those experiences and write a book that people can relate to, and they're relating to this book all over the world. So, but when you were all talking about, writing from your personal experiences, I could relate to that. So I'm going to listen to the rest of the show. Bye-bye.
Well, thank you, Judy. When selecting ebook titles, we use words that convey the benefit of what's in the ebook, as well as words your audience is familiar with. A bad title for an ebook, is obviously like online marketing for newbies. A good title for an ebook could be 97 ways to promote your website. No experience required. So sometimes you might want to come up with something that's catchy or humorous. Usually you want something that's going to deal with the book, because if the title has no relationship to the book whatsoever, you're kind of like throwing people off.
Yeah.
How has everyone come up with titles to their books? Who would like to take this
That's
one?
a really good question.
Well, it's... go ahead.
Go ahead, JT.
Sorry, this is JT. Of course, the name of my book is The Dragon Soul Saga, and that title, I was lucky that it was one I picked, and the publisher liked it well. It fits right into the pocket of the genre. Dragons are huge right now. It's the year of the dragon. I go to a convention every year called Dragon Con, so, when you're... And that's part of finding that fine line between trying to write something that's real literary value, and also finding a marketable product that's going to make you the money so you can write the artistic book later in your life that you want to write, Mm-hmm. So when I was coming up with titles, I wanted something that would be, a few words, easily searched on, and that gives a sense of both mystery and what the saga is about.
Well, go ahead, Dave.
Well, I was just going to say, for me, it's less practical, I suppose. I just kind of count on my intuition, where I'm just doing something one day and a title just pops up. If I try to think about it too much, I come up with this stuff that just sounds ridiculous, and then I just put it away. And often for me, if I'm driving or if I'm doing something and not even paying attention to it, I just get this little hit inside, I guess, or this little voice. And a title just starts to appear, and I put it down on paper, and I keep looking at it, and I go, that's interesting. Yeah, that's good. And I just tuck it away until the next day, and when I look at it, if I have the same reaction, that's usually what I go with.
Well, I'm going to backtrack just a little bit, because I do want to talk more about the marketing. And I was serious when I said Judy really knows how to go out and market. She's very good at talking about her book. Mm-hmm. And Roger, you and I had a discussion a few weeks back when you were going to be on the show, and we were talking about, I don't think you had done very many radio shows at that time.
Actually, this is my first one.
Oh, okay. So
it's very fun.
Right. And you were a little skeptical, nervous about it.
Nervous,
to say, yeah. And I think that's the one thing that's important. When you need to take advantage of anything that's out there, and there's lots of radio shows that talk about writing today and cover authors, and it's kind of like what Judy said. You really need to find every avenue possible and speak about it in order to get your name out there and the work that you have out there. Okay. Anyone have any comment on that?
Yeah, this is JT again. I mean, along those lines, that's why I was very happy when my publisher told me that we'd be premiering this novel at Comic-Con. I mean, that's a place where you've now got 200,000 comic book fantasy dragon geeks that are going to be walking in front of you. And, and then when you've got something beautiful to bring their eye over, like I was lucky to have a wonderful cover done, and then that's all your bait, though, because they're all very discriminating readers. So you've got to plant the hook in, and that's when it comes up to you as the author to really sell your work and not and be honest, but make it interesting, and also especially with my stuff, you don't want to give away any spoilers. So that's the trick, and that comes to direct author personal interaction. Now that's no way to sell 1 million copies, but it's a way to find the root. And like I say, at Comic-Con, you never know who you're going to run into, and I'm sure there's plenty of other events in everybody's different genre where it's the same kind of deal that you don't know. For example, at Comic-Con, I was talking to a guy for 10 minutes. He walked away, and the guy next to me told me, yeah, that was the former head of fan relations for Lucasfilm. I'm like, oh, if only I'd have known that when I was talking to him. But you never know who you're going to meet, whether they're going to be the person that's an influencer and going to spread your book out to 1,000 new people, too.
Now, Dave just recently had a great experience, as a matter of fact. His mother also wrote a book.
Oh, yeah.
And you want to share that experience?
Well, it's interesting because she wrote this book in the early 90s. And she has the complete rights to it now. It was done with a publishing company that did about as little as they could. So she basically got nothing from it. And I said to her, why don't you add a new chapter? Which she did. It's her story. It's called Who Said So, which is a pretty great title. And it chronicles her journey of being diagnosed with MS back in the late 60s and her 12-year journey to complete recovery, which is a pretty unusual story. And it's a story that really needs to be out there and told. And so I asked her to add a final chapter to the original, something more like my life 50 years later and all the things I've learned and so on and so forth. So she did, and we came up with a new cover. And it's something that I have not spent a lot of time yet on promoting.
But you ran into someone. You were where were you?
Yes, I was volunteering at the Las Vegas Film Festival. And Lea Thompson from Back to the Future fame. And she played a character from age 17 to age 40 throughout the Back to the Future
Caroline
trilogy.
in the City.
And Caroline in the City, yes. So I had a pass that allowed me to go anywhere in the festival, and she was having a news conference. And I had the book because the more I saw her, the more I realized that she was actually perfect to play the role of my mother if somebody actually wanted to make a screenplay out of this, which is what I was hoping somebody would do. So she was done with the press conference, and I came up to her and I handed her the book. And I told her what it was. I told her I thought she'd be great if she thought it would make a good screenplay. She asked me if my contact information was in there. And we pretty much, said hello and shook hands and got a photo taken. And waiting to see what's going to happen. I'm hoping she does want to follow through on it. That would be terrific. But was it JT?
Yes, JT.
To JT's point earlier, you made a great point that you have no idea who you're going to run into.
Yeah.
I had no idea that I was going to run into Lea Thompson there. And I had no idea in other places. The more you show up, the people you come in contact with, there's no way you can guess ahead of time of who that's going to be. So you always want to be prepared with cards or with copies of your book or whatever you have that you can hand somebody and not be just like everybody else who sticks books who sticks books in people's hands. That's me getting excited. Who sticks books in people's hands because they get that a lot. You want to be real. You want to be memorable, and usually people remember people who are just themselves, and that's an issue sometimes when people come up and they think they have to be somebody they're not, and people really don't like that.
Well, let's talk a few minutes about the importance of the ebooks versus the bookstores. What experiences has everyone had here? Well, Nancy, you haven't yet, but you will. You will.
Kelly, can I get a question in?
Sure,
from a novice
absolutely, Dr.
perspective
Smith.
Before we move forward,
Sure.
I just want to, because I'm hearing take advantage of every opportunity, right? So for me, just getting my book out, it means, do I speak when I'm just having dinner with someone? Do I speak when I'm at the movie theater? I mean, do I pass out cards, for example, when I'm at the movie theater? If I'm attending a game where there are a lot of families, a game, my daughter, she runs track. So do I pass out cards at that point? I mean, what does it really mean, taking advantage of every opportunity?
Everything you just said.
Yeah.
It's all a go.
You have to be proud of what you did, and you have to believe in what you did, and that you can share it. And then, I will start talking to someone about what I've done and realize I don't even have any cards on me. So hopefully they'll remember what I tell them. But it's a good idea to have those cards on you so you can hand them a business card or something about your novel or your book, whatever it is. And, you should talk about it whenever you feel like it to everyone. Yes, Nancy?
Yeah, I know all about promotion and obsession. Really, anytime you want to get ahead at something, you generally have to be utterly obsessed with it. And I agree very much with the comment that we have to be genuine, because if it's not part of you and then you think, oh, I got to remember to tell this person this and that, how are they going to feel about it? Am I intruding if I go on and on what I'm doing for a living? Or are they going to feel sold? That's the wrong path. But if you go, I'm working on this and I just love it to death and I just, here it is, then they're feeling it from your heart, and then they appreciate what you have to say.
Yeah. Well, and Roger knows Judy McFadden, and that's why I admire her so much too, because you know her, and she truly is a genuine person. I mean, I kid when I say she calls promote, she really calls because she's genuinely interested in what we're talking about. But it's also a great way to get your name out there. So, don't be shy. I'm saying this to Roger. Don't be shy.
Yeah.
Well, I met Judy in the library, and I use library to my advantage. Being a librarian and working for the Clark County Library District, I've taken advantage of everything that I can. They bought copies of my book, The Library. I have also know librarians in the Henderson Library District. I told them about it. They bought copies of it. So it's in the libraries. I'm going to do a program later this fall at the Clark County Library about how to publish your book with one of my good friends who I met in the library when we were doing a book festival there, and I had a table promoting my book at the library. So I use everything I can within the library to my advantage. I tell patrons all the time that come in and that know me, and they've checked out my book. Several have bought my book and then have brought it in to sign it. So I knew that one of the advantages I had when my book was published, that being in a library, I'm surrounded by readers all day long, and there isn't a day that goes by that I don't mention it to someone that doesn't know about it. And hopefully they tell someone, and the book has done really well for checkouts. I'm checking the circulations on my book at the library, and each one has checked it over 10 times so far, and I was really surprised by that. Yes, it's a lot of people that I work with or people at other libraries, but also a lot of people that have just come across it on the new bookshelf.
Mm-hmm. One of the things we have to mention a little bit is how do you guys think ebooks are relating now to the bookstores? Do you feel like the bookstores are going to the wayside, or do they still have a benefit?
Well, for me personally, I just want to make a quick point if
Sure.
I can. I know we're running close to time. And it's what Roger was talking about before really caused me to think about a very important word. And Roger said it about 5 or 6 times while he was talking about the website, and the word is author. And a lot of people don't see themselves as being authors yet. And if you think of yourself as an author, the idea of doing many of the things that we're now talking about gets a little easier. Yeah. And I know as an actor, it took me 3 or 4 theater productions before I actually thought I was an actor. I actually had a director saying to me, I came up to her once, I was doing Christmas Carol, and I was playing Ghost of Christmas Past, and I had a violin. And I walked up to her and said, what do you want me to do with the violin when I'm done with it in the scene? And she looks at me and she goes, I don't know what to do with it. You're the actor. Figure it out. Yeah. And I swear to this day, I know she did it on purpose because she knew I needed that kick in the butt.
Yeah.
And because she's not a mean person, but she did that specifically for me. And that was the first time I actually thought of myself as an actor.
Yeah.
I really did.
Yeah.
And everything changed after that. So as an author, hugely, hugely important to get that mindset straight. You are an author. You're writing things. You're producing them, ebooks, regular book. Publisher, non-publisher, doesn't really matter.
Right, and that is so hard. It's very difficult. As someone, I've experienced it myself. And Nancy, you know now, from this point forward, you are an author.
Oh, yeah, I am. I'm just still awfully budding, and that's why I really appreciate your show here, because it's giving me so many ideas and so much impetus to move forward again, because this is something that has been put on the back burner for way too long and has to come out now. So thank you.
And now that you've told us on the air, it has to get finished.
Oh, yeah. You give me another deadline.
I will give you another
It's out
deadline.
there. It's out there.
All right. I'm going to, on our next show, it's going to be we're every other Tuesday here on KLAV. And on August 14th, we'll be talking about the importance of PR and public representative, which is a public representative, and literary agents. And I don't know how many here have experienced that. Has anyone here on the panel? I know, JT, you have.
Yes, actually, It's kind of an ironic story, I suppose, although I should be careful using the term ironic as an author. What happened was I had an agent pick me up, and she submitted me to a bunch of publishers, including the publisher that eventually picked me up. Well, they all at first rejected me. Then the agent released me from my contract, and it wasn't 30 days later that the publisher came back to me and said, now we want your book. So basically, I lucked out of not having to pay the agent, so they kind of introduced me to the publisher.
Well, that's
so
nice.
I kind of had a very lucky story.
Well, I'm going to go into the last minute of the show here, and our next show is going to be about public representatives and agents and the importance of securing an agent or a PR representative. My guests will be Travis Short and Dana Michelli. I would like to thank my guests, Nancy Nies, David Breslow, Roger DeBlanck, and J.T. Hartke, and Dr. Antoinette Smith. You can find links and information about all my guests on Aspects of Writing at www.aspectsofwriting.com. Aspects of Writing broadcast live every other Tuesday at 2 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time here on KLAV, and on the internet at www.klav1230am.com. Keep in mind, we rebroadcast every Wednesday on VegasAllNetRadio.com at 8 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You can also view us on live on video here in the studio at KLAV on YouTube immediately after this broadcast. Just go to YouTube and enter Aspects of Writing with James Kelly. Every other Tuesday, we alternate with a show called Behind the Scenes with James Kelly. That's also at 2 o'clock p.m. And on that show, we actually talk with directors, producers, actors, crew members, and we go behind the scenes of various shows in town. You name it. And for future air dates and lineups of all my shows, you can go to your computer and log on to aspectsofwriting.com. Please sign our guest book while visiting the Aspects of Writing website. You can post questions or comments on the guest book page, and you can email me at aspectsofwriting@yahoo.com. Thank you for listening to Aspects of Writing right here on KLAV. This is your host, James Kelly, reminding you, if you can dream it, you can write it.